Hi everyone, in my last video I was just responding to a comment about where I was just trying to clarify essentially that autism is something that's there from birth, right? It does not develop later in age. Even if you get a diagnosis later in age, it didn't develop later on from birth. It's there from birth, okay? And on top of that, I also was just trying to explain that the symptoms or the behavioral patterns may start showing in children as young as 2, and it's not down and shouldn't be blamed or put down to things like too much TV or lack of socializing. Oh no, what if my child ends up autistic? Again, cannot end up autistic because you were born that way. It's about how your mind functions, right? How your brain is hardwired, essentially, differently to someone who's neurotypical. And that's why there are doctors and such in place to put you down the diagnosis route themselves, because they know what they're looking for. Right. This one is just going to be talking about exactly that, really, the diagnosis of autism. So having a diagnosis. First I'll talk about mine, and then I'm just going to make a mention of some reactions I tend to have heard about from parents or other people when they're an adult compared to when you're a child. And yeah, so if you like the content and you want to see more, you gotta follow, leave a like, questions, in the comment section, requests in the comment section as well, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and repost, because it helps with not just raising awareness, but also keeping up my motivation, which is very important also. So there we are. Now, okay, so as for myself, I was already diagnosed for ADHD. So I was a part of a group ball clinic who was filled with ADHD doctors who understood different disorders, neurological deficits and such, neurodivergency and everything. So now, how I got diagnosed wasn't from a parent or school or anything as it might be today, but instead, during my appointments with my mother, they were picking up on repetitive behaviors I had, or communication deficits and such, and they're the ones who picked up on it and wondered or suggested to my mother that I might have autism and I should go down the diagnosis pathway. So I did, and I was diagnosed when I was around about 11 or 10. Now, for parents like my mother who had already had a child, me, right, diagnosed with autism, it can be a lot easier to then notice the same kind of behaviors or issues in their other children. So a bit after I was diagnosed, my brother was diagnosed, who also already had ADHD, and then my 2 younger brothers years down the line, both of them again. So, but a lot of time parents may not know what to look for. So back in the day, it was, if you got diagnosed with autism, it was down to the health visitor usually. They'd come by, they'd check up on you, they'd notice these behavioral patterns that you have, they'd know what autism is and how it presents itself, and then they would suggest going down the pathway for diagnosis. These days, there's more awareness, true enough, but most parents don't seem to be entirely clued on autism or what it is or how it affects a person until after their child has been diagnosed. Or adults are the same until they've been diagnosed themselves. Because then they can kind of pick up and go, oh, hang on, that makes sense now, in reference to different quirks they have, different issues they've had throughout their lives. But despite that, because of that, these days, it tends to be more reliant on the school system. So if in school your child is acting up, or I hate to use the term acting up, but that's what it'll look like. It's acting up, or they're having difficulties with communication. Say the teachers then are reporting to the parents, they're not understanding me when I tell them this, I can't get them to sit still, their concentration is all over the place, and so on and so forth. Then they may make the suggestion to the parents, what if your child has autism? And then suggest that they go down the pathway of diagnosis. Perhaps the parents have already picked up on some of these behaviors themselves. So that's typically how it tends to go these days. Of course, it'll depend on from country to country. I mean, that's how it seems to work in the UK. But I can't say for everywhere else, like America or Asia or anything like that. But that seems to be the running process, I suppose is the word. Now, so... But I've also heard, when you're a kid, of all sorts of I've also heard, of all sorts of different kinds of reactions people tend to give after getting diagnosed themselves with their parent and their child's been diagnosed. As a kid yourself, if you've been diagnosed, and you may relate to this with me, yeah, it's mostly just a word, it's like I heard it and I was like, okay, didn't really affect my day to day. I was still me. The issues I still had were still there. The quirks I still had were still there. I didn't really understand it. I understood it as I was growing up and I was getting the support I needed in school. So, and not every school is equipped to help people with autism or ADHD a lot of the time, it depends. But, so that's what my reaction was. But since then, I've heard about people who get diagnosed as an adult and end up in depression phases, for example, because they think the issues they might have been facing throughout their life, especially if they're extreme sensory issues and stuff like that, or executive functioning issues like to do with their brain, tend to enter a depressive stage because they think the issues they've been trying to overcome, they've been trying to sort out, perhaps through counselling, things like that, and the diagnosis is just like a confirmation that it's going to be there forever. And I get that can be daunting and horrible. But the problem is, I think you can't focus on the idea of solving something or getting rid of an issue, no matter who you are, right? Period. Like curing it, like it disappears. It may always be there, but you gotta focus on is what you can do to help manage it. Yeah, because sometimes that's the best you can do. And it's a lot healthier to think along those lines than to just give up hope and think that's it, I'm doomed. Because you're not doomed. And there's definitely, if you're going through something, there's definitely someone else out there who's gone through the same thing. Someone you can talk to, someone you can relate to, or someone who's an expert in helping people like you go through the process of managing that thing, that difficulty, that challenge, whatever it is. Now, also, parents tend to take a negative view a lot of the time when a child gets diagnosed with autism, and they tend to go down the route of, again, oh no, that's horrible, it's doomed, it's the end of the world, what are we going to do? They're going to struggle. It's like, yes, you know what, they're going to struggle, but that does not mean it's hopeless, yeah? What you need to do is not focus on all the issues, all the problems, all the difficulties. They're going to be there anyway. What you need to focus on is what you can do to help support them, alright? And explain to them that it's okay to, first and foremost, it is okay to be different. And people with ADHD or autism, in this case I'm trying to stick to autism, yeah, it doesn't affect the two people with autism the exact same way. At the end of the day, you are still individuals, okay? So different methods are going to work for different people, and while one person with autism may have extreme sensory issues, someone else with autism may not, but really struggle with communication. That's how it goes. So, and even the sensory issues, in fact, it's like, there are so many senses in the world. It's like they're going to be vulnerable or like really alerted by certain senses, yeah, by certain smells and stuff. That's going to be different to someone else, even with sensory issues. So, that's the point. It's like, avoid self-diagnosis, because there are doctors in the world who are experts at this, who know exactly what they're looking for, right? And self-diagnosis will not be helpful, because you may have something similar, but it doesn't mean you have autism. And if your child has autism, again, not the end of the world. And also, I think part of that comes down to a large misconception that if you have autism, you're intellectually challenged, which is not true, because there are plenty of famously intelligent people who have been diagnosed with autism, alright? Now, so that's basically all I'm going to say, I think, for now about a diagnosis. And instead, now in the next videos, I'm just going to start talking about some of the ways that the brain functions with autism, some of the issues someone may face with autism, and you know what, maybe some methods about managing them, starting with some that I use and then some that I've heard others use. So if you're interested in keeping an eye on that, then please follow, like, leave a comment, questions in the comments, requests in the comments, subscribe to the YouTube channel, repost the video, please, alright, and I'll see you soon. Bye.